Okay, so hello. If you're just joining, my name is Magda and I work for Red Carnation Hotels. Over the next 30 minutes, I will talk about mental health, inclusivity, and stigma. It is a topic it is a topic kind of very close to my heart. I don't know if you can see me on camera. I can't see myself. There you go. I'm back. It's a topic close to my heart. I'm a mental health first instructor, and one of the aims of the mental health first aid program is to break stigma. I've got some live experience of mental illness, and I've got family members with that as well. So my aim is to bring awareness to subtle and not so subtle examples of stigma so they can all be more conscious about them and make some changes to our behavior and improve inclusivity. I love interacting, obviously, so I love seeing your things in the chat. If you have any questions throughout the session, obviously, please just put them in the chat or you can ask me at the end. I'll be asking you some questions, but obviously, you can't interact too much. It's all guided by me, but I'll definitely be asking you to answer some questions in the chat. So I'll be patiently waiting. So before we begin, let's have a little check in. It's important to slow down and notice how you are feeling, what's going on, and how you can sort out your emotions, assess your needs, and make an intentional plan on how to address these. So, especially for those who love cats, on a scale of cats, how are you feeling today? So, drop a number in a chat. They've got 9 different cats. You can be few of them, you can be one of them. So have a think, where are you today? I'm probably somewhere between, I'm a number somewhere between 6 and 8. I feel really excited. It's the festival, but also a bit, you know, confused by what's going on and overwhelmed at times. But definitely gonna have lots of self-care tonight. 6 and 8, Ari, same. Yeah, I love seeing Emma. 1, 4, and 7. What a combo! What a combo! Uh, any twos? Okay, good, good. Lots of answers. Okay, well, keep thinking. And, the reason why I ask you, it's important, as I said, to kind of check in with you. And it's a short presentation, but the topic I cover, some of the things that I mentioned might be uncomfortable or triggering. So please remember to look after yourself and take a step away if needed. Remember about your own safety as well. Um, Tempted by one, Scott. That's after my presentation, right? Okay, so. I'll leave it for a sec because I see more answers coming in. I love it. Okay, number 8. Are there any nines or twos? Okay, mixed. Okay, great. Okay, keep thinking about where are you and what you can do to address that, but I'll move on to the next part. So, mental health and diversity inclusion. Closely connected, but I think the link is not always obvious, is it? When we talk about DNI, we tend to think of legally protected characteristics like race, gender, etc. So DNI and mental health definitely intersects because beneath our differences, we all have mental health in common. And this week, as we discuss how to make our words and workplace more representative and inclusive, it's important to remember that anyone can experience mental health issues. And stigmatizing people with mental health problems can give rise to unfair treatment. And this short session is dedicated to sharing few practical ways on how we can be more inclusive and compassionate. But let's start from the beginning. So, although it is true that everyone has mental health, it is also true that not everyone experiences problems with their mental health. And even among those who do, no two experiences are exactly alike. So, we also must be aware that some of us can be more vulnerable. Our experiences, post trauma, and other stresses in our life can have an impact on our mental health and psychological safety. So, people from underrepresented and marginalized groups can face more adversities like lack of representation, microaggressions, or unconscious bias. So we've already covered loads of that, especially today. So our sessions are very kind of linked, Team Uniworld. So when someone's race, identity, sense of who they are repeatedly questioned and used against them, their mental health can be affected. So, what is actually stigma? Stigma involves negative attitudes or discrimination against someone based on a distinguishing characteristic such as mental illness, health condition, or disability. There are also social stigmas, and they mean that it can also be applied to those who live a certain way, have certain cultural beliefs, or make different lifestyle choices, and usually is linked with protected characteristics, as I said before, that include gender, sexuality, race, religion, and culture. And what's important to highlight here is that it touches more than just the person living with the illness. It can impact family, it can impact friends, colleagues, and more. So, where does it all actually come from? Stigma is not a new invention. It has been around for a long, long time. It often comes from a lack of understanding, fear, such a strong emotion, or even media portrayals. So, on the slide, I literally just got a couple of examples, and I'm sure you've seen them before. Um, We've got Britney, her journey a few years ago. It was scrutinized, trivialized. Even recently, with the movement, there was a wonderful movement, Free Britney, and she's free, happy, married, but she received so much, kind of bad press and m- media. Yeah, we're absolutely awful. So many trolls. Yeah, ignorance too, absolutely. So lack of knowledge, yeah. Not seeing the need behind learning. Joker, I think that's the original, so that's also kind of incorrect depiction of someone with schizophrenia. So loads of other movies that we can think of that portray people with mental illness as violent, as aggressive, someone with depression, maybe lazy, someone with anxiety is cowardly. So that kind of shapes our perception and really has an impact in how we're supporting people on daily basis. So stigma can manifest in itself in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's subtle, but other times it's more obvious. So how does it actually manifest? Words have power. I think it was mentioned in microaggression session as well. Um, Lots of examples on the slides. If people react negatively or judgmentally when someone discloses a mental health problem and talks about the
I'm
issues.
better. Still get a little tickle here and there, but
Hi, if you can just put yourself on hold, please, if you're joining. Thank you. So yeah, when someone discloses a mental health problem, they open up. It can really have an impact if the reaction is like one of those on the slides. So let's have a look at some of those phrases. So for example, classic phrase, boys don't cry. If you could just type in a chat, what's the issue with that phrase? What's the impact of saying that? Boys don't cry. What do you think about this one? Yeah, yeah, I've got an answer. Emily Kirk got in there first. Yeah, absolutely. Toxic masculinity, classic, you have to be tough. Um, Provides, yeah, repression, encourages boys to hold in their feelings, which is wrong. Absolutely. And I love that Michelle mentioned that they have a circle for men called Manage. Good name. But definitely, men on average, there's the number of men dying by suicide is 3 times higher comparing to women. So really, really highlights the issue. Thanks for your answers. Yeah, really good. Next one. Well, how about if we say, derogatory terms like psycho, crazy, mental? What's the issue there? Yeah, belittling the real conditions, derogatory terms, trivializes all these issues, can also deeply hurt someone. Very good, yeah, create an unsafe space. And it doesn't you don't have to be called that. You can just hear someone else being called that way, and it already creates that unsafe space. So it can really have a huge impact on a person, have their experience invalidated, and then in the end contribute to that stigma. Um, how about, phrases like it's all in your head, try some exercise. Other people have it a lot worse than you. What's the issue there? Pull yourself together. Yeah, absolutely. Dismissive, dismissing the struggle. And what's important to acknowledge is that when someone opens up, they want their feelings validated, they want their experience validated. And when that doesn't happen, it can really be damaging and contribute to a lot of stigma. So, you know, just really kind of empathizing and using that language is crucial. I'm here if you need me. How can I help? It's really, we need to come from this place. Let me see if I have anything else left. How about she suffers from schizophrenia? She suffers from bipolar disorder. What kind of language is that when we say suffer? Definitely negative, Skylar. Yeah, really good answers in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it kind of, I think it is very commonly used language, but when it comes to it kind of implies, as you said, it is that wrong impression, and people can be really affected by it. So a more kind of appropriate phrase will be, sorry, what I was going to say is that it suggests a victimhood, but instead of, we can say, that a person lives with that condition. They're not bipolar, they're not schizophrenic, they not don't suffer from it, they live with it. Because especially some illnesses are complex and long term, and that doesn't mean, recovery doesn't mean getting rid of your symptoms. So it's really, really important to changing the language around it, because yes, it does promote the stigma. And I think there, how about I'm so OCD? What happens? What's the issue with that phrase? I'm so depressed today. Yeah, absolutely. It does trivialize those who do have a serious diagnosis, because you like things certain way, that doesn't mean that you have obsessive compulsive disorder. And it really minimalizes and trivializes actual mental illness. Same with the word, triggered. Being actually triggered in a mental health sense is very serious and can have a devastating effect on people's life. So saying you triggered when you really aren't, right, of the experience of people around you. And because these experiences can be very, very scary. Thanks for all your answers. I think I have just one more. How about, I'm really going to take those meds. What's the issue with that? What are we promoting that way or not promoting? Definitely judgment. Yeah. Well, how about if someone comes to you and they say they take a medicine for their high, high blood pressure? Would you ever ask that question? Are you really going to take that medication? But yet, so many people are afraid of psychiatric medication, and sometimes it can be life saving. It really is needed to support the treatment. So I'm sure that paints a picture, and I love all your answers. They're fantastic. Thank you so much. I won't have time to read all of them aloud, but I am scanning what's happening, so thank you. So we definitely so we've definitely kind of come a long way, when it comes to language. And I actually assumed that, you were on a call, so you're more aware than everyone else, that this language is derogatory and stigmatizing. It tends to be the people that don't never come to those sessions, they actually need to learn a thing or two. But we can't be just bystanders. We have to be active allies, and not saying it, not doing it doesn't mean that we're doing enough. Uh, yeah, Liz, absolutely. People on medication can take the SAMs off because of stigma. They're afraid of side effects, and it can have detrimental results. So, a few more examples of what does mental health stigma actually look like. Think about harmful stereotypes, media depictions. We've already said it. Um, it creates an unhealthy view of on personal identity among those who live with mental illness themselves. They might be reluctant to ask anyone for help. It's shocking, but more than half of people with mental illness don't receive help for their disorders. I think general ratio is around 60% don't, and I think actually it's pretty higher. So I need to send a note to WHO. But the average delay between onset of symptoms and the start of treatment is between 8 to 11 years. 8 to 11 years. I'm shocked by that stat. So just ask yourself, would you wait that long if you had trouble breathing or had a broken bone? I don't think so, and I hope you will not. But that's the same with mental health. People avoid or delay seeking treatment due to concerns about being treated differently or fears of losing their jobs and livelihoods. And a study of over 90,000 people worldwide found that stigma of mental illness is one of the top reasons that they don't receive care. Okay, another example: difficulty in getting a job and holding a job, social exclusion, excluded from your friends, family, community in general, social life, that silence when you don't hear from someone. People might be sent flowers when they break their leg, but when they sign off with depression, uh, there might be nothing. That's this awkwardness. Yeah. Liz, it can be culture too, where people think it's weak, perhaps to acknowledge it. Absolutely. Well, cultural differences definitely have an impact, but receiving appropriate cultural care is also important. So, yeah, very true. Um, People might have difficulty in accessing services and support because of stigma. That's not just related to mental health. Problems with physical health, lack of appropriate care. Stigma can lead to discrimination. It can be obvious, direct. It could be someone making that negative remark about our mental illness or our treatment. Or it might be less obvious, someone avoiding us because they assume we're unstable because of our mental illness. It can be treating people differently because of their illness, underestimating their abilities, overlooking for promotion, and that as a result, it worsens our mental health and reinforces any negative feeling we might have about ourselves. Institutional stigma, that's more systemic. That involves policies of government and private organizations that intentionally or unintentionally limit opportunities for people with mental illness. The example could be lower funding for mental illness research, fewer mental health services relative kind of to other healthcare, but also thinking about like big pharmaceutical companies. There's so much funding when it comes to other research for other illnesses, but not necessarily when it comes to mental health. Another thing is, we might even judge ourselves and self-stigmatize. Self-stigma is really, really impactful. It means that we believe the negative labels that society places upon us. We might believe that our condition is a sign of personal weakness, or that we should be able to control it without help. Uh, the shame and embarrassment self-stigma ingrains in us can make us reluctant to talk about a condition, limits our understanding and awareness, allows that self stigma grow even stronger, and then in the end we might not seek appropriate treatment, we might not speak with our friends, and it has negative impact on our personal sense of identity, self-worth, and hope for life beyond the illness. So if you have any other thoughts to kind of add now, please do in a chat. I'm just having a look. Yeah, lots of good points. Physical versus mental. Yeah, control. Absolutely. There's definitely no equality. But What's the impact? It's a vicious circle. Stigma can significantly worsen someone's mental health problems, defining, us as an illness rather than the person with a meaningful voice and contribution to make. It can make it difficult to access treatments, as I say, and begin the journey to recover and rebuild our life. Stigma not only directly affects individuals with mental illness, as I said, but also the loved ones who support them, often including their family members. Um, Behind stigma, there's always a story. Stories in our families, my family including, and there's something to be learned from each experience. So what I thought I'll share with you today is a little story, a short story about my uncle. So this is my uncle. His name is John, if you translate in English, but I say Janek. He was born in the 50s, comes from a small village in the northern part of Poland. He left home at the age of 19, then got qualified as a bus driver and moved to a city 60 kilometers away from his village. Life was good, and sorry for the quality of the pictures. This is my mum taking a picture of the picture, but I really wanted to kind of show you him before he got ill. So he lived a regular life, socializing, work, friends, until he started developing symptoms of a complex mental illness in his late 20s. So this was in early 80s. So my uncle moved back with my grandma into their family house back in that small village, which was 5 kilometers away from a primary care doctor and much further from a specialist care. So that kind of paints you the picture of the environment. He continued working as a driver for another 2 years. This was a small town near the village, so he could live at home and then still work. But then his symptoms became more severe, and his company moved him from being a driver to work in a garage and help with repairs. Until one day, my grandma was called in by his manager. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Obviously, this was way long before I was born, but it was decided that he can't continue working. So his manager helped my grandma to get my uncle a disability allowance. So he has some income, but it meant that he was no longer in employment. He lived isolated in a small village without any social activity. So growing up, I didn't really know much about it. I grew up fully accepting the situation. My uncle was fun. He always gave me some pocket money. I got loads of ice cream out of it. So what's not to love, right? But I spent most summers on my grandma's, and I didn't really care for any of the symptoms. But no one also bothered explaining it to me. It's just the way it is. But I remember, the whispers and comments from some people, the family shame, sadness, and lots of other feelings, and the fact that I couldn't really talk about it much or ask any questions. And I think there was a situation, when I was 7 or 8, when my grandma's neighbor asked me loads of questions about my uncle. And kids have no filter, so I just answered them honestly. I can't even remember what it was. But then the next day, my grandma saw her neighbor and she came back home upset and told me off. So I was really surprised. I got upset too. And this is how I learned that I cannot speak about him. I cannot ask any questions. And I didn't for many, many years. So years passed. He was definitely more and more isolated. I remember him being hospitalized a few times, which helped. But later on, he was reluctant to get more treatment. And a lack of regular professional help, definitely took toll on his mental and physical health. So both of those deteriorated. He never went back to work. So that affected his income, his independence. He wasn't understood by his family and others. So he didn't have any meaningful relationships in life or wasn't part of society, was only seeing his family and few local neighbors. So over the years, he left his house less and less until he stopped altogether. My grandma ultimately, became a full-time carer, and my family looked after him as well, but definitely contributed to his social exclusion and made a few other mistakes on the way. They really wanted well for him. They wanted to support him, but didn't have the knowledge to kind of give him that. They were impacted by stigma too, and the conversation around mental health, especially around more complex illness, was very different back then. So, as I mentioned, he didn't have access to appropriate care, and over the years, his physical health deteriorated, and he passed away 7 years ago at the age of 60. So, Every story is different, and this one doesn't have a happy ending. Unfortunately, my uncle developed his condition when most mental health illnesses were deemed untreatable. He didn't get early help, and there was very little conversation and awareness. Things are different now, depending where you are, but stigma is still widely present. And by sharing his story and kind of making few points of how he was impacted by stigma and lack of inclusion I want to acknowledge the impact it can have on individuals, their families, so can really understand our responsibility in making a difference. um, Everyone's unique, every story is different, and at the end of the day we all just want to belong, and we have to do a little bit more in fighting stigma and being more inclusive. It is our responsibility. um, I've never actually shared this story, and I'm a little shaken, I'll be honest, but I'm really glad that I could share that with you today on this call. So let's think in kind of a lot more kind of forward terms as like, what can we do to actually tackle that? What can we do to be more inclusive and tackle the stigma one day at a time? So how can we do it? I want you now to have a think. I've been talking for way too long now. How can we tackle the stigma? How can we be more inclusive? I want you to drop your answer in a chat, please. Yeah, some good points coming through. Yeah, reach out to people. Yeah, just, hey, I'm thinking about you. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It's just really letting someone know you're thinking about them. Language we use, educate ourselves, absolutely. Knowledge is power. Training for managers and employees how to react better, be more inclusive. Yeah, go back to the basic and treat people as you want to be treated. Normalizing, listening with an open heart, listening, learning, and educating. Don't ignore it. Encourage talking, especially if the person withdraws. Yeah. So not kind of leaving them, educating, not shying away from difficult conversations. Be kind, don't make assumptions. Encourage openness and talking. Checking ourselves when we find thinking bias. So yeah, judgments, calling out stigma. Yeah, be proactive, be there to listen, be kind, be more of our actions and what we say. No judgment. Yeah, listen with an open mind, empathy. Don't give up on people. Yeah, they might have given up on themselves. Absolutely, self stigma is has a bigger impact than stigma in general. Yeah, offer resources. Okay, lots of good answers. Thank you so much for that. Um, make time, yeah, don't ignore. Be kind to yourself. Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup. One of my favorite quotes. Act with integrity. Yeah, how we behave when we're being watched that truly define us. Very true. Wise words, Scott Clinton. Wise words. Okay. Lots of good points. You've already covered everything that I've got. Good, because I'm running out of time. Few points from my side, just like you said. Talk about mental health, normalize it. It's so much easier to say I've got bad back rather than actually I'm feeling anxious, my mood is low. Remember, my cats earlier, you can make fun, you can have fun along the way and really kind of normalizing that it's okay. We all know it's okay not to be okay, but then when people are asked, are you okay? Then they say, yeah, I'm fine. But what is actually, happening, we still don't know. So ask twice, even 5 times. Be honest about your treatment. If you can open up, why people can say they have an appointment with their GP without kind of fear of being judged, but this lack of fear does not apply when it comes to mental health professionals. It really can prevent people from seeking help. Um, Encourage equality between physical and mental illness. So you remember our phrase from before, are you really going to take those meds? It really is my um, it really is annoying for me, I'll be honest, because we tend to express a lot of empathy when someone has a physical illness, but we might not extend the same behavior when it comes to mental illness. Same with medication, there's so much stigma around psychiatric medication. People might say it's unnecessary, overuse, or I don't want to be on this for, are you going to take this for the rest of your life? They might suggest exercise, that food will make you better. And there's nothing shameful about taking medication for depression or other illnesses, and it can be life saving and improve the quality of someone's life. Education, we've already said it. Um, there are so many resources these days. I mean, festival is a fantastic education, reflect after all of that. It's important to examine our own beliefs about mental health, think how our upbringing and culture shaped us, and challenge it. Be an ally, an active ally as well. Speak up if you hear, rude remark being made about mental illness, about anything. Try to use it as a learning opportunity and kind of intervene and kindly express how and why we need to stop this, because it only contributes to the stigma. So stand up for your colleague who experience poor mental well-being. Ask how you can help. Listen with empathy, but also take care of yourself. There was a really good session on, I'm looking at the schedule, yes, on Tuesday on allyship. Especially that was for allyship with LGBTQ plus community, but I think there was a lot of key points that we can all take away. And it's standing behind someone and really, really supporting them. Not discriminating or not doing something doesn't mean it's enough. Lastly, words have power. We know it. Adjust our language, that inclusive language with kindness. We look at all the phrases before. You just get over it, snap out of it. It really doesn't help. But adjusting our language can really have the opposite effect. It can really help to normalize mental health. So, if you have any other thoughts, drop them in the chat, please. But going back to I'm almost there. Going back to the beginning of my presentation, we're discussing stigma mental health during the festival, because no matter who you are, what your identity is, we all have mental health in common. And it's not about blame. It's not about worrying about our mistakes, what we did in the past, but it's really to encourage everyone to think how and when people might not be in a place of acceptance, comfort, approval, and respect when it comes to mental illness. And because acceptance, comfort, approval, and respect are truly the opposite of stigma. So we're not going to get rid of that overnight. It is a journey, it takes commitment, but the road is already becoming more inclusive. And by participating today, you are already making a difference. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. Um, a very good question, Mr. Holmes. Can your company fire you because you have mental illness? That is illegal. Well, thanks for the claps. Any questions, please let me know.